Okay. Hopefully, I won't be gasping and burping and yawning, which I'm about to. Nah, man. Ah, God. I really need to plan this out more. So, this is not going to be another coronavirus sum up. There really hasn't been a whole lot that's changed necessarily in the past week around here. Um, but what I would say is for this week, I'm reviewing Spider-Man 3, as you can tell by the video's title. Honestly, the reason I'm reviewing this is mainly because I've already reviewed the first two Spider-Man movies in the Sam Raimi trilogy, and I kind of figured, what the hell, I might as well finish off a trilogy, right? Um, the interesting thing about this movie is that I remember when it first came out. I didn't see it until 2 years later during a spring break trip with my mom. And when I saw the movie in this small hotel room on a Navy Lodge, if I remember correctly, in Monterey, California, um, yeah, that's a whole other story for maybe another time and another day. I remember I watched Spider-Man 3. I can't remember if I saw the first two movies. I remember at least seeing the first movie before seeing 3. Anyway, so I watched Spider-Man 3, and I kind of 14-year-old me didn't really have a thumbs up or down reaction. I was very firmly here, and there wasn't any real wiggle room for positive or negative. And I remember for pretty much the bulk of the past 12, 13 years, 10, 11 years actually, a lot of people seem to view this movie as a train wreck compared to the first two Spider-Man movies. And having seen the movie recently, I don't think it's as bad as people have built it up to be. I mean, yes, there are some cartoony moments that are kind of stupid, and it's kind of questionable whether they're meant to be funny or if they were unintentionally comedic. The scene where Harry gets that severe concussion and memory loss, that part to me is actually funny, ironically, because of how bad and how rubbery the CGI looks. And it's seriously, if you play the footage of that scene where he's banging against the pipes and the walls and adding cartoon sound effects, it really is a CGI video game Looney Tunes skit with Spider-Man avatars, apparently. Um, but I think the first thing I want to say right off the bat is that I really do like the opening credits, the opening title sequence with all the little images in the webs of the first two movies and how the black ooze symbiote starts infecting the CGI webs. It is very well crafted and very well designed. So I got to give him credit. That's actually a really cool opening sequence. And the story picks up, I think, at least a year or two after I think maybe 3 years. It's been a few years since Spider-Man 2. We don't know how long in this film's continuity. Um, so Peter has kind of gone from controversial vigilante to hottest slice of pizza in town as Spider-Man. Um, and things happen where Peter considers marrying Mary Jane. He's planning to propose, but then, of course, as you know, whenever you have a movie and the character is on cloud nine, you know that everything's going to go straight to hell after the first act. We all know that that's going to happen. Um, and honestly, I do like the story of how Peter seems to be oblivious to the world around him because things are going so well for him. He's not noticing that other people are struggling, including his would-be fiance, who's gotta say, for someone who gets fired from her first Broadway job, her first off-Broadway job, she's got a pretty good spanking apartment. And it's a lot bigger and prettier than the one Peter's stuck in. Um, but it is kind of an interesting way to juxtapose the two characters because usually the way it's been in the first two movies is that Mary Jane, compared to Peter, is not struggling as much. The only thing we really get in the first movie is that she has a verbally abusive father, and that's really it. You don't really, I mean, you don't really dive into it as much. And um, and then in the second movie, she's about to marry an astronaut, but then decides to live with Peter. So, but Peter's pretty much on his own of his own problems in this movie. And there's a really good scene where Peter blows off Mary Jane while she's trying to help him sort through a problem. And that is kind of one of the lessons of the movie, which is ego. I mean, just because you're the biggest slice of cake in town, everyone's going to need a little help. You're not invincible, as Aunt May would say in the first movie. Peter, you're not Superman. Yeah, and I think Superman would have been more humble by the first few years of his career than Peter was. Um, and it really does affect his relationship with Mary Jane because, as I said, she's struggling with her Broadway career. She gets fired from her first major show, and she ends up being a singing waitress at a jazz club in a somewhat respectable part of New York City. I'm not sure if they're filming in an actual club or if they just built a set. It's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, so Harry also wants to get after Peter for allegedly murdering his father. Kind of spoilers from the first two movies. And here's where the storyline really starts to get messed up. One of the themes in this story is about forgiveness. And you have a good setup for that with Harry wanting to get revenge on Peter and Peter wanting to get revenge on Harry for ruining his life after Harry figures out everything that's going on after regaining his memory. And I feel like here's my problem with the forgiveness moral. They set it up by having Flint Marko, who's Sandman in the movie and in the comics. They have him be the killer of Uncle Ben, and I kind of feel like that's a little forced. I mean, I know they're trying to give Peter an arc where he learns to forgive, but I don't really see the point. If you just focused it with Harry and Peter at each other's throats and then have Harry save Peter at the last second when he realizes that his evil ways have gone too far, I think then you could have had the forgiveness story arc. And it would have worked more because Harry was mad at Peter. Eddie Brock, who would eventually become Venom, and we're going to get to that. He become Venom. They both hate Peter for ruining their lives. Only Eddie Brock actually had his life get ruined by Peter, and Harry not really. So that would have been a good scene, and you wouldn't have really had to change that much of the script. But Sandman is kind of pointless. I mean, there's really three villains in this movie, and one of the main bad guys, Venom, doesn't even show up in the film until we're in the last 35 minutes of the movie, and the movie's 2 hours and 19 minutes. I think if you had the story arc of Peter becoming aggressive and rude with the symbiote, I think if you had that storyline happen near the end of the first third and then continue on to the midway point of the movie and then have Eddie become Venom, I think that would have worked out a little more. Because, I mean, the Eddie Brock character is kind of developed. It's just that the villain isn't, Venom really isn't developed. And another problem, even though the CGI effect on the symbiote looks great, the problem is with Venom, he doesn't really. It's just Topher Grace's voice when he's Venom and Brock, and the problem with that is that's not really intimidating. I mean, I guess there's a little tinge of creepy in the voice, but at least with the Tom Hardy movie Venom, whether you like it or not, from what I've seen, at least when the Venom character's on screen, there is kind of this creepy demonic like voice that Venom has, and that works because Venom is supposed to be this parasitic monster, you know? And I really do think that they kind of lazy. It was almost like Venom was just thrown in as a lazy last minute addition to make more of a problem for Peter to fix. And I do like the story arc where Peter becomes so clouded with his own darkness with the symbiote that he starts acting out of turn. And okay, I'll admit I'll admit I am praising. I did criticize the movie and give it some praise. I will admit the scene where he's doing the E Street Shuffle a la Saturday Night Live style or Saturday Night Fever style. Sorry, took me a second to realize I said the wrong thing. Anyway, I do kind of feel like that was a little. I can't tell if that was meant to. I think that was meant to be goofy for a joke. So if you're gonna make fun of that scene, well, guys, I think Sam Raimi knew that scene was supposed to be comedic. So it's not really. It is hard to take the movie seriously when he's doing that, but yeah, it's not bad. I mean, okay, it's not awful, but it is kind of silly. And I mean, there are some good comedic moments with Jameson in the movie where he's trying to take the right medication and trying to keep his anger down while he's getting frustrated. That was pretty funny. The bit where he takes this little girl's camera to get a picture of Spider Man and then he finds out the film is out and the girl tricked him. So he gives the camera back to the 10-year-old and he pulls out his little digital camera. That okay, there are some good funny points in here. Ted Raimi has a few funny scenes in here as well. Um, all in all, I do think that the conflict that Peter and Mary Jane are going through is a believable one because again, Peter is kind of ignoring her need for sympathy and Mary Jane is kind of having adequacy issues and doesn't really know what she wants. And again, Peter's not really helping as much because he's kind of caught in his own little world. And I do think that the drama with Mary Jane thinking that Peter is more interested in Gwen, it is understandable, especially when Spider-Man kisses Gwen and when Spider-Man and when Peter is dancing with Gwen in that nightclub in front of her. I think the breaking point is when Peter is kind of semi-aware of him changing, but much like a man with mania, he only notices the extra juice in his body, so he doesn't really pay attention to it. So I thought that was a really good way of showing like the effects of mental illness and living in your own world without seeing reason. Um, all in all, I do feel like that this movie, while I think it's good, I do think it's a huge step back from the first two movies because this one tries to be a little goofy and sometimes it seems a little ridiculous, but other times it genuinely works. I don't think that this is one. I don't think it deserves as much of the ridicule it has gotten, but I can definitely see that there are a lot of things you can make fun of, as I just kind of did. Um, overall, I do think that it's kind of sad because I think Sam Raimi did say the reason why Sandman was even in this movie is that Sam Raimi really wanted to use that character. I think if he had just had it focus on Venom and Harry teaming up to take out Peter, I think if you condensed the story and made it more lean, then maybe there would have been a chance for a fourth Spider-Man movie and for Sandman to make an appearance without hogging up too much of the spotlight. So overall, not bad. I don't know what I'll be reviewing next week, but I will see you guys later. And I am also going to review the song Long Train Runnin', so I can get that covered to you on Monday safe and sound. See ya.